Okay. They tell you when you're speaking to a large audience, you should warm up your voice by singing. So I'm going to kick it off with some Katy Perry fireworks. Does that sound all right for everyone? So my name is Sam Horner. I'm a product designer at Netflix. Thank you for the intro, Tom. And thank you, Sarah. Welcome to the Global Innovation Forum, an event where we discuss the past, the present, and the future of innovation. And what do I want to talk about today? I want to talk about when it's not quite working. But I also want to talk about ways that you can innovate in a slightly different way when things aren't working and how you can take a different perspective on that. I'd probably get on with this before my president, potentially new president, won't let me back in the country. But I want to find out a little bit about the room. So do we have any fellow designers in the room? Just check this out. Excellent. Engineers, managers, directors, CEOs, big thinkers. I see everybody's hands up. Netflix subscribers. Wonderful. Thank you for paying me for being here. That's very wonderful of you all. So, a little bit about Netflix. So any of you don't use Netflix, I hope after today maybe you consider it. We have 80+ million subscribers now worldwide. As of January this year, we launched globally, apart from in some areas of Korea and China. We're based in Los Gatos, California. I'm originally born and raised in Leicester, a wonderful city, current champions. Moved my way over to California about 5 years ago. Today you're going to hear from some amazing people, some amazing companies, some people that want to take you and I to space one day. Some companies that are really focused on helping you find anything you want in the vast database of the internet. Some people want to help you rethink how healthcare works. Netflix, we just want you to sit on your ass. We want you to offload and forget about the day and hopefully take part in what we think is the future of storytelling and television. So does anybody in here not know what A/B testing is? Got a few? Great. I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown, very basically, on how Netflix thinks about testing our products. We A/B test probably 99.9% of everything that goes out. We put it in front of our customers, and they make the decision on what's best. It can sometimes be very difficult for a designer. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But let's say you have one picture to represent what could be the greatest TV show ever made, in my opinion. If I'm trying to get 80 million people to click on a show to check it out, and I have one image to represent that show, whose right is it to decide what image that is? We have 30 frames per second of about 9 hours worth of content. That's a lot of potential images that this could be. So is it my artistic right to be able to decide what that image is? Or anybody else's? What we think in Netflix is our users should be able to decide that. So let's say there's another image. I think this one's great. This is the one I pick. This is the one I think is going to be the best picture. But you know, I'm actually a little bit greedy, so I'm going to say there's 6. These are all really great pictures. So what we can do, and what we do at Netflix, is we put all 6 of these images in front of all of our customers. And we basically see what the click rate is. It's not very different from how we've been doing click rates and metrics for years. So let's say we have this here. On the left-hand side of this image, you've got your control metric. You've got what you currently have today. And then you have some variance plus negatives on what that might be. So as you can see there, we've got one image that's not doing so hot. We've got another image that's doing pretty well. So for the beginning, where you had a picture of our cute gang of heroes, now we have instead we have a picture of our crazy mum in real life and in the show, Winona Ryder. So this is not a true example. When you go home today, you probably won't see this image. It's representing Stranger Things on your Netflix. But maybe that's just because you live in the UK. We know and we've seen that people react differently to different images, different stimuli in different countries. We operate in a lot of countries, so we do this in every single country workout. And you'd be amazed that it's different nearly every single time, and I've yet to be able to predict one. I'm always wrong. That could say something about me, but nobody's trying to hire me today, so that's cool. But Netflix, with A/B testing, it's very important to have some really strong things that you truly believe in. For Netflix, we are focused on one thing, and that's getting great TV and movie content in front of all of our customers. So we focus on two really core metrics, really. The amount of hours watched, and how long you stay as a customer of Netflix. That's really, really important. We know that our customers are having a good time and they're getting good value, hopefully, out of Netflix. We do have a whole bunch of other metrics. I can talk about that forever. I will be here all day. And I can talk about them forever. I challenge that. But there's coffee breaks and everything. We'll talk about that later. But what I want to talk to you today about is an A/B test that I've worked on for the last 2.5 years, really. And I want to talk a little bit about Max. Now, we have a little bit of a test now. Let's see if sound works. AV guy's giving me this no face. That's cool. Let's go for it. I want Max to talk about himself. Oh, I'll do it this way.
Hey there. Time to live dangerously. I've got something I know you'll love. Put your trust in me and just hit play. What do you think?
So Max is a talking concierge. We created him to try and help you find the best TV shows and movies.
Oh, all right. But remember what Benjamin Franklin said. A penny crap. Well, you get the idea. Let's get back to it.
So
let me find my notes on your favorite stuff. So, what are we feeling?
So what Max does is he goes through a series of games, helping you with personalization from your Netflix history, the things you've currently enjoyed in the past, other games you've already played with Max, to help you try and pick things to watch. So this game, an example of one of the games is called the ratings game, where a TV show or a movie would come up, preferably to start off with one that you've actually seen before. So you've obviously got a good job because it's hard to make a decision if you don't know what you've watched. And you can tell us what you thought of that movie, and it starts to give us a rough estimate of what you're interested in. And Netflix is pretty implicit as a company in our recommendations. It most goes on in the algorithms in the back end. But we know that some people just like to have a little bit more control. But I also know that most of you guys aren't very good at making decisions when it comes to watching TV shows. I have proof in numbers. So when Max originally came out, he just wasn't doing so well. So what he wasn't so good at. When Max was originally created, it was back in the DVD days. Remember those? They were amazing. And we had such a small design team and such a small engineering team. Something very specific like Max we felt needed to be outsourced. So we worked with an agency that had built these types of interfaces before. But doing that is expensive. It's not a cheap way to do things. It also slows things up for time-wise. Only a quarter of users end up in a play. I mean, that for me is not successful. If I'm desperate to find something, I'm asking somebody for help. If I went and spoke to one of my friends and said, hey, show me something good to watch, and 1 in 4 times what he told me was absolutely rubbish, I would never speak to that person ever again, because TV shows and movies are very important to me. I've hit here, around 90 seconds to the end of the experience. So when you've played Max, you're kind of in this very solo experience, and it takes around 90 seconds, around average, to get from the beginning to the end. Now, during that time with Max, you might see maybe 10 to 15 titles. If you're doing that in the standard browse UI that most of you might be used to with Netflix, I'd be seeing hundreds of titles. That doesn't really do a great job of helping people understand the breadth of the Netflix catalog. Whether I might see something I do like or see something I might want to watch in the future, or even something I don't like, I'm starting to see the amount of content that Netflix has and the sort of range that I'll have, and that's a benefit against our competitors. He will often recommend titles you'd already seen. Because our algorithms outside of Netflix were doing a lot of implicit work, a lot of the decisions we're making were still based on those implicit things that you've offered us by your viewing history and what you've been doing in the past. So you may have seen a lot of the recommendations, and him telling you was sometimes better by giving you a little bit more of an explanation, giving you a little bit more of a yes or no, very binary decision. I want to watch this or not. But wasn't doing great. And international growth, American wit. It's not everybody's taste. And Max had a sense of humor that even some Americans didn't really get. I didn't quite get it. But he was very binary in that sense as well. You either loved him or you hate him. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it in testing. I've seen a lot of people hate Max. I've seen a lot of people love him too. So that kind of gave us some challenges. But he was good at some things. 20% of members who had access to Max used him within a month period. There were lots of people that wanted Max. They wanted something like Max, something to help them make that decision, because, as I said before, we're not always so good at making that decision. And when he works, people come back quite a lot. If he gets it right, if he finds you an absolute gem in the catalog, you're going to come back. You're going to come back and watch something because you start to trust him. You're building up this very human, very basic human interaction with something that's talking to you, but you start to trust that thing. And people would start to build routine around it. Oh, we're going to sit down tonight, and we're going to let Max pick a movie for us. And that's kind of great. And as I said, we had high usage of movie hours. I know it's a lot easier to pick a TV show, even though you're putting yourself through potentially 10 hours of content, even longer with some older series. To go for a movie, it's much harder to make that decision for the next hour and a half of your life. But Max was really great picking movies. People preferred it when he picked movies over TV shows. So what we decided to do with Max was give him one last chance. And what we did with that, I had some goals, and we had some goals as a team. We'd learned a lot from Max. He'd offered us a lot. We'd learned from the previous things we'd put together. And what we wanted to create was one more game. Well, I'm calling it a game, but essential module, it's the easiest way to describe it. And what we wanted to do from a user perspective is make it a lot better, obviously. As a designer, that's my job every day. I'm the voice of the user within my company. We want to make a faster experience. We wanted to make it simpler, more personalized, and from my perspective, a much better design, but don't tell the agency that built that. So we worked on that a little bit as well. So what we ended up doing was creating something that we called hot or cold. And the best way to describe hot or cold, as alluded to by Tom earlier, is Tinder, really. It was a way that I can judge. Does everybody here know what Tinder is? App, dating, judging people based on very minor and terrible things. But you can do that for TV shows. We don't feel so bad if you judge us. You don't judge our TV shows, but we've got to pick some great images, as we talked about before. So what hot or cold would do is it bring up a title. And you see I've got cold and hot on the left. I push to the right. It's one simple interaction. Great. You're interested in that. I press left. I'm not interested in that. And you could also press play. We'd seen through qualitative testing that if people weren't sure about a title, they would say no. So we didn't need to have a I'm not quite sure button. We just go that way. In the same way with Tinder, you're not quite sure about somebody when you make that decision. But we're talking about something less serious. So it was a lot easier for us just to make this quick, simple interaction. And the results we got out of it were great. We got an increased fraction of content viewed from Max. Anybody know what that is? That is what we decide is the, honey, yeah, sure, you pick that one, that's great moment. Is if Max picks something for you, it doesn't mean, we look at that metric and that's great, but it doesn't mean you're going to watch it. You might watch 10 minutes and go, this is complete crap. What the hell is this? So fraction of content viewed is the amount of content you would end up watching of that content that Max had recommended for you. That went up, and that was really great. That meant our recommendations were getting better. And you see a lot of content when you're flicking through your Tinder style, when you're flicking through people. Imagine you're doing that with TV shows and you're feeling indecisive. You see a lot of our content. That's really great. It gets you closer to what I was talking about with the browse problem before, the amount of titles you're seeing across the catalog. We saw increased streaming. So people that had Max and people that were using the winning test cells in Max, their streaming across Netflix as a whole increased. That's great. That was one of our core metrics I talked about before. Like that's a big win if you get one of those. So that's great. Our product is in a really good space. And it increased Max usage. People really liked the game. People wanted to use it more and more and more. And that was really great to see. We did a cell in the test where we did various different cells. We did one where you just had to do 2 positives, and that was we made a decision based on that. We also did one where there was no end, and you could just go. And I've seen how many titles you guys can go through before making a decision, and I promise you it's 4 figures. It's really long, and there's a good amount of time that's put into that. So that was a win. We solved all of our user problems, and that's great. So what is next for Max? What is next? I bet you're wondering what the future is of Max. Well, I killed him. He's dead. I'm your product hitman. You want any decisions making, I can kill things, no marble problems, as long as it's product and not breathing. So why? We solved all of our user problems. We looked at the screen before. We got a faster experience. We solved all of our user problems. This was great. Well, let's go back to what wasn't so good about him in the first place. There's some things that we didn't solve. He was expensive to maintain. Doesn't matter how good we made the games, still expensive. It's still slow. If you're working with outside people, I'm sure everybody here worked with outside agencies. Through communication, it's instantly slower. Especially if you have an in-house team that's working very passionately. They understand your business. They understand how your workflow is. You're working with outside agencies. You're working with hundreds of other companies. Getting them to understand your business, and let alone build products and design better things, is slow, and it's expensive. And in the end, we get great things, but just say we couldn't do that faster internally. We increased the speed. I put little plus nos because I couldn't make a decision here. We increased the amount of time that you go through Max by making these fast games, making fast decisions, but still nowhere near what I can see. I can see 10 titles at a time if I'm looking at Netflix on a standard UI, Apple TV even more. Max, he's kind of narrow-minded. Let's put it that way. He only speaks one language, my friend Max. So I killed him. I didn't feel, and as a company, we didn't feel comfortable even launching Max in the UK. His humor wasn't quite as dry as those Brits, who most of you might agree. And we're kind of hard to please. You put this in front of America, if Americans don't like him, then Brits are definitely not going to like him. In fact, I didn't even send this to Canada. That didn't even go there. So we felt really uncomfortable with how that would help. I talked about this earlier. We're an international company now. We're in 80 million different households around the world, many different languages. How do you support that with a slightly unwitty American? It's pretty tough. Sorry, Americans out there, you can beat me up after all this. And we knew things now. We learnt so much with Max. It was an incredible tool for us to learn, and we knew we could do better. I knew we could do better. After we'd done all this work, it's millions of dollars, millions of hours speaking to executives, different parts of the companies, say, let's build this thing, getting a yes, and then finally getting to this point. But we still knew we could do better, and we did. But I'm really sorry, that's a story for another time, because we haven't launched it yet. So I can't talk about it just yet. Sober. This is a good time to remind you that at the end of the day, we have a drinks reception, and I'm rather partial to gin. It's a Brit thing. But it did give me some themes I want to discuss. You're going to hear a lot of principles and things that people are going to talk to you about what they've learned today, but I've got a really smart group of people here today. And I'm not going to come up here and pretend that I'm right about everything. And I want to discuss this with everybody. We're actually running a little slow on time, so I'm going to do one question, but I'm going to be here all day, and I'd love to talk about this movie later. But I'm going to talk about 3 learnings that we felt were really important, and I'd love to discuss more with everybody here. And then some of them align very closely with what Tom was talking about earlier. You kind of killed my thunder, buddy. Don't be precious with your product. Be precious with what you learn. I spent a lot of time working on Max. I can hum every single theme tune. You heard one of those. I have 3 of them, and I hum them in my sleep. My wife doesn't like it. None of my friends like it, and I could frankly do without it. I spent a lot of time with him. And Max's real strengths came from what we learned from him. He was a really powerful tool for learning. How people make decisions when they're put in a binary space, and rather than having titles everywhere, I've got so many options. But if I'm just like, I've got to make, what about this or something on the other side? What do I make that decision there? We learned a lot about that. How people think about voice UI. You've seen with Alexa and Home, we didn't create anything nearly as powerful as that, but we learned so much importance in how people like to react to something like that. Are they a best friend? Are they a girlfriend or boyfriend? Are they your slave? How people treat these types of devices. We learned a lot from something very simple like this. And we knew by killing Max, we could create something even better, more efficient, time-wise, effort-wise, and much better for our customers by taking those learnings and taking it together, rather than Max himself. So we learned more from him than we had to productize. We didn't need to productize it to learn that. I put this one up, and as I was writing it, I was like, I felt like this is a difficult one to write, really. Success shouldn't always be about the reason to build something. It's really hard to not have a goal when you're going something. I want to always, as a designer, I want to build the greatest and best things for my user. But if I can create something faster, which I can get the learnings out of to put in front of my users, we can do this qualitatively. We do this qualitatively a lot. I'm a big fan of qualitative research. My wife's a qualitative researcher. But there's nothing as powerful as putting it in front of 8 million of your users and getting that kind of feedback. You're not going to learn anything like you can do from that. Because I've seen it. People say things that they want, and it's not quite what they do. It's that 80% of parents say that they limit their child's TV watching in their household. I'm not going to tell you the exact metric, but I'll tell you it's not 80%. And that's because people like to think they're better. We have something called My List on Netflix. Internally, I like to call that the list of things that you will never watch, but you think you would because you're a smart person. Full of documentaries is My List. It's a great place to be. And we do see benefits out of it, but it's definitely you definitely don't put House Hunters UK on there. That's not on that list. If you build something for learnings, you're less tied to the details. You're able to produce something really fast and arguably more value than going headfirst into this productize or die approach, which I know a lot of us do. I've done it in other places where I've worked. So being able to build something just knowing that I'm going to learn out of this and move on is a really powerful place to be. It's powerful for your team to be able to see how things work, and it's not just about a set group of people making decisions, because everybody from engineering, product decisions, they all see this product, they fall in love with it, and then they see the learnings at the end. And there's no better way to tie a team together than seeing the learnings out of something you've created and killed murderously. This is an even tougher one as a designer. Design for the user, but launch for the business. What does that mean? If you create something perfect for the user, won't the business follow? I say that to myself every time I pitch Netflix should be free. It would be wonderful for our users, and it wouldn't be so good for a wonderfully bankrupt Netflix. So always be aligned with the big picture of your company. That's what this is about. Where you want to be, not where you are now. It will help you really just create amazing things. And although that may sound like the money man's dream, keep it in mind. We only launch for the business, make it better. In reality, it's how you truly innovate. And it's how we change the world. The biggest ideas are built on the future. And this is something Tom was talking about earlier. And your company's goal should always be focused there, no matter how many times they've reached that. You may reach your goal, but there's always the goal beyond that. If Netflix had thought like that, we might still be the greatest DVD delivery company in the world. And I can probably see a few people's faces and wondering how that would be going right now. Probably the same way as Blockbuster.